the comic industry is in such a sorry state. There's only a few books that are actually selling. And Robert Kirkman and Skybound's Energon universe with Void Rivals and Transformers have been some of those books up to this point. The other, of course, main big one these days is Ultimate Spider-Man by Jonathan Hickman. Those are about the only bright spots in the industry. Everything else is not selling. The summer event from Marvel called Blood Hunt has dismally low sales. They're very scared about that. It's Marvel, according to my sources. DC Comics, same thing. Absolute Powers pre-order numbers with Mark Waid are just did not move the needle like they thought it was going to heading into their major relaunch of their line, which they're trying to make an Ultimate Universe ad. The Ultimate books, other than the Spider-Man one, are not doing well either. The Avengers, or Ultimates, they call it, number one, actually sold lower than Black Panther and Ultimate X-Men. So things are going down the tubes very, very fast. Comic shops have been closing regularly. We've had quarterly results that have been dismal from the first quarter of this year and even down further from last year's end-of-year numbers. And so it's all kind of the same problem. It's the wokeness involved. And I know there's a couple comic YouTubers who used to rail on the woke and say it's killing the comic industry. I'll name them. Comics Matter, your boy Zach, and Comics by Perch. And they backed off of that as they've tried to appeal to the mainstream industry. And it's very easy to try to appeal to the mainstream industry when there are books like Transformers out there in the Energon universe. And what you saw in the first couple of arcs was pretty good standard action adventure. We thought this was going to be a big thing. Once Kirkman got the license, ripped it from IDW, it looked like it was a turnaround for those properties, which, by the way, at IDW, they'd been mired with identity politics for a long time. You guys might not remember Audrey Sitterson's G.I. Joe run, where they turned Salvo into this like giant Samoan woman. Do I even have the picture here? No, I don't. Giant Samoan woman who looks like a man. And then there was tons of virtue signaling through that book, of course. On top of that, Transformers went into pronouns with the robots. I mean, it was a train wreck at IDW. So you thought it couldn't get worse. And of course, everybody was overjoyed when these properties seemed to be pretty good out the gate. Now, I was a little worried, not with Transformers. Daniel Warren Johnson typically writes some pretty good books and seems to focus on the books and not his politics overall. But Robert Kirkman's known for bait and switching in this regard. He did that with Invincible. Invincible went for several arcs, and it looked really good. And then he decided to make some weird, pro-abortion message out of the book. It was cringy, and it was difficult to read after that. It really ruined the character. But he did very similar in Walking Dead with the wokeness. And he waits down the line. He gets you lulled into it. He gets you in the habit of reading, and then he drops the bomb because Robert Kirkman is a leftist atheist at the end of the day. He does not have morals, and he does have talent writing. I will give him that, but he hires who he's going to hire in this regard. So Void Rivals and Transformers have gone along, and then I was a little worried when Joshua Williamson was writing Cobra Commander and Duke from the G.I. Joe line. Because of this, he just posted from DC Comics, this is a Superman comic, where he actually put a mashup of Alex Jones and Eric July into the comic book as this unhinged weirdo reporting out here. And they actually call him con men and bullies. And this is just about, a YouTuber who makes his own comics on the internet. Very, very weird to throw this into a Superman comic book. And it just shows how much these people really do loathe us, how much they hate us as the fans, and hate us in general. Now, this has been normal for the comic industry. Everybody who gets hired in mainstream comics is an extreme leftist weirdo. They have to be. It's part of the litmus test to get in. Joshua Williamson is no different. And so, his putting this in here is really the first marker of what's going to happen in his books down the line. They always go down this path. They subtly start doing it at first, and then they start to go unhinged, and that's exactly what we're seeing with the G.I. Joe line. Now, on top of this, they've hired Kelly Thompson to write the follow-up, Scarlet, to Duke, and Scarlet's a longtime G.I. Joe character, of course, a kid's toy, which has been around from Hasbro for a long time, part of the cartoon back in the day, and she's getting her own solo book, which just came out with its first issue. Now, naturally, she started in this James Bond-esque adventure where she's being all girl bossy and all that. And I noticed it started to get a little weird when she was being insubordinate to the white male general in the book. She actually was getting called off by him. She was doing the mission anyway. And then she goes to his office and just gives him lip. Now, this is something that would never fly in the military, of course, because I mean, you'd get court-martialed. I suppose I would ask how the victims and their families feel about being home instead of us coming home with intel on where they were going to be, sir. Because she stepped over the line of her mission. If you step over the line of your mission, you actually engage in. And by the way, she killed people in Monaco, an international incident like that. A U.S. military going and killing people in Monaco, regardless of the results, would definitely result in her termination, probably imprisonment. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. And she just dresses down this general because she's the girl boss and she's right, and he's a bad person because he's just a bureaucratic white male, and that's the implication here. Down with the patriarchy, and this is it's a subtle-ish type of thing that you see from Kelly Thompson. But it is par for the course of what you see from the SJW industry. This is what all books are these days. It's standard. You can't open a book without this nonsense in it. Now, a lot of people would just leave this incident alone, but it goes way beyond that. And if you paint a picture, there's really 3 incidents now between 2 issues where they're putting SJW politics into G.I. Joe to the point where they're going to go full LGBTQ agenda. And that is Kelly Thompson's agenda, which I'll show you as well. Now, the Joshua Williamson incident with this is when Cobra Commander actually ascended to his Cobra Command, and he starts recruiting people. You notice that the look of this, it's very intentional. This stuff is not done by accident, guys. Every person who's being recruited by Cobra here is like a southern-looking white male chud, they're this is MAGA country type of person with their guns and with their beards and trucker hats. You can see every single one. There's not, they didn't color any one of them black. This is very, very intentional. They're all men, no women, of course. And this is a intentional setup to make Cobra the anti-diversity MAGA party, while they're going to make G.I. Joe the diverse and inclusive good guys, right? This is what they do every single time. And this is the same guy who wrote Eric July as a bad person in a DC comic just recently. So when you see this, there's a trend going on, a pattern. And you know that, again, the head of this line is a liberal atheist who's done this before in his comic books. So you know where this is going to go. They lulled everybody into a sense of complacency into buying this, into consuming. People cheered it on. The sales are really good. And now they're going off the rails. And this new, the G.I. Joe books with these miniseries, the first one started all right. Joshua Williamson, again, talented writer. But when you get into the people writing Destro and Scarlet, they're not talented writers. They are diversity hires being propped up by the industry. And that line's already going down the drain. So we're going to see what happens next. Now, Kelly Thompson has warned that she's really into the whole diversity shilling before. So this is her, and she's being propped up by the industry, by the Whisper Network, and she got Eisner Award nominations. She's like the rising star of feminism. They're having her replace Kelly Sue DeConnick, and I think she really got bigger as she goes along because her name is Kelly also, and so people actually confused her with Kelly Sue DeConnick to some degree. You'll see this in the in her other post, and so like she kind of just like snuck in there on that. But if you look at what she says, here it is. Me, I have a lot of cool comic projects right now, and I'm very lucky, and I should work harder and faster on them. Also me, all I want to work on is my badass gay girls in space comic. Oh, joy. Yeah, we need more of that. More gay girls in space. We got the Acolyte. We got Picard, which was gay girls in space. They made Star Trek into that. They made Star Wars into that. They made Doctor Who gay girls in space. I mean, yay. Stunning and brave, Kelly. Also me whispering, and story killer. Okay, so she wanted the gay girls in space. She also wrote one of the Girl Boss Captain Marvel runs with Carol Manvers. And here she is, she's saying, and this is where she's confused with Kelly Sue DeConnick, as she mentions here, I certainly support trans folks, and Carol, Captain Marvel, does too. But in fairness, credit where credit due, that's not my page. So she's bragging that a page supports trans, and she said she would totally do the same thing, even though it's not hers. So gay girls in space, this, and then you get into the G.I. Joe comic. So after Girl Boss goes and takes down the patriarchy a peg, with no consequences, which doesn't make any sense, she goes home. And here you see this like subtle virtue signaling towards lesbianism. And so here it is, dramatic. She's talking about Jinx, who is the villain here, who she saw at the Monaco incident. And she talks about this. If he knows that a missing in action military asset has been located, that's Jinx, there are two options. He knows and cares and he screws it up, and she never comes home, or he knows and he doesn't care and she still never comes home. And I also have to serve a life prison sentence for murdering him. So she actually says she's going to murder the general because she wants to bring home Jinx here, who lived with her, as you find out soon. He says, the dude says, dramatic. She says, yeah, maybe. And he says, you two were closer than your files suggest, because she lived here. And so they do this little pause, and Jinx, she is like a sister to me. And so they made it sound like, oh yeah, it's like one of those how gay people used to go, oh, it's my roommate, when it wasn't socially acceptable. They're pretending that's like where gayness is at these days, and in order to be subtle. Because if they went full and just like, well, we were like, Scarlett's gay, there'd be a riot, right? And so they're doing it very subtly, so it's implied, and that's obviously going to be, comic fans are not the most, I'd say, well-read, so it's difficult to read implications for some of those guys. So they'll just take it and they'll consume it because it's just implied. It's not that woke. That's what they'll do. I'll take it she's the one with the green thumb. And so she's holding this plant like as a memento, and obviously they're living together in this house. This is Scarlett's house because she's the one who is obviously planting the garden. And so, yes, they're living together. And so that's the first clue towards this at this point. And then she gets the copy-paste thing. It drives me crazy in comic books. So lazy. But you can see she's just like thinking about her lesbian lover there, obviously. And then there it goes. I'm doing my best, okay? And so this sort of emotional reaction is not like, a friend, a sister. It's obviously implied that means lesbian. And later on in the issue, they actually have the girls with their arms around each other like they're a couple. And so this is what Kelly Thompson is throwing into G.I. Joe. They've turned Scarlett, a kid's cartoon character, a kid's toy, into a lesbian in order to groom people, just like the comic industry always does. So I'm sorry, guys. I know the Energon universe was super exciting, but Robert Kirkman does as Robert Kirkman is. He's an extreme leftist. He's hired only extreme leftists, and it's going down that road. They've started it off subtly. They're smarter these days because they know if they throw it in your face like they used to do with the old G.I. Joe ones, like Aubrey Sitterson used to do, that you react and you get really, vocal about it. They've seen it with the Acolyte, right? It's very overt, and so the people are like, screw this. They know if they do it subtly, they won't get that kind of reaction, and they can just like make a pot boil slowly and then not actually get the fans all pissed off. So they're going to have their cake and eat it too. They're going to produce the woke content their ideology demands and not drop off their sales. It's really devious, and it's really smart of them. But this is where we're at. Robert Kirkman, Skybound, the Energon universe, Joshua Williamson, Kelly Thompson, they're all rabid SJWs, and they're destroying G.I. Joe and Transformers. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Join us here. Make sure to back some non-woke content. This is the Hidden Emperor, and my character's not going to end up being a weird lesbian. Please check it out. This is the sequel to my 2022 Overmind, which you guys backed incredibly, and it's wonderful. Quite the opposite of this. Much better writing than Kelly Thompson. You'll enjoy it, and I'll put that in the description below. Thank you for being there. We'll be back soon.